Good evening, everyone. Welcome to NTD Tonight. I'm David Zhang. Here's a preview of some of today's top stories. Fighting continues in the southern Gaza Strip. Israeli officials now calling on the United Nations to recognize Hamas as a terrorist group. A former U.S. ambassador arrested and charged with spying for Cuba. Much of his foreign service career was spent in Latin America. A Los Angeles man arrested for alleged murder of 3 homeless people in a follow-home shooting. We'll have more on how police found him. First up, Israel Defense Forces continue to strike Hamas terrorists even in the southern Gaza Strip, and warning civilians before they do. Meanwhile, Israeli officials are calling on the United Nations to recognize Hamas as a terrorist group. NTD's Jason Perry has the latest. And a warning, this report contains content that some viewers may find disturbing.
Israel Defense Forces are now operating in the southern Gaza Strip, and along the way, they are calling for more Palestinians to evacuate.
We're dropping leaflets with QR codes that opens a map guiding Gazans to safer areas. The map is divided into neighborhood numbers, indicating where civilians in a specific area should go to avoid being in the crossfire.
On Monday, some Gazans shared their frustration about the situation.
They forced us to leave our homes and brought us to the south, and then we are forced to leave Khan Yunis to here. We have nothing to say except God help us. Where shall we go? Where to go?
However, the IDF says the evacuations will only be temporary. On Sunday, the IDF reported that it had found over 800 tunnel access points and has destroyed 500 of them since the war began. Hamas terrorists are known to conduct terrorist attacks from these tunnel shafts, many of which are located near schools, mosques, and playgrounds. The IDF said these findings are more proof that Hamas uses the civilian population as cover for its terrorist activity. Meanwhile, on Monday, an Israeli government spokesperson laid out some of Israel's goals in its war against Hamas.
De-radicalization, to ensure that the next generation of Palestinian children are not brought up on the same diet of jihad and martyrdom as they have been in schools in the Gaza Strip, including those run by UNRWA.
We reached out to UNRWA, which is the United Nations Relief Works Agency, for comment, but didn't hear back before airtime. Also on Monday, Israel's ambassador held an event at the United Nations to expose the sexual violence that took place during the Hamas terrorist attack on October 7th. Please be warned that the following accounts are graphic. During the event, an Israeli national police officer showed interviews with a survivor and a first responder.
שכופפו מישהי, ובעצם אני מבינה שהוא אנס אותה, ואז מעבירים אותה לעוד מישהו. היינו בעיקר או בדוק שדיים או ירי, רק בשדיים, פשוט ירי מקצה של שד לקצה השני, ולגברים איבר המין.
The United Nations does not recognize Hamas as a terrorist organization, and the speakers are calling for the UN to do so. Also, the UN hasn't recognized the sexual violence committed on October 7th. The speakers are calling on the UN to recognize that as well. Jason Perry, NTD News.
Now let's take a look at other national headlines. First up, tense moments in the Red Sea on Sunday. Yemen's Houthi rebels fired missiles and struck 3 commercial ships. The U.S. military says its warship shut down 3 drones in self-defense during the hours-long assault. The Iranian-backed Houthis claimed 2 of the attacks. On Monday, White House officials said they don't believe the 3 ships that faced the attack have ties to Israel. 2 of the ships struck by missiles were flying under Panama's flag, 1 under Bahamas' flag. No casualties were reported according to the U.S. Central Command. U.S. officials say they will consult with the allies for a response. Also, a Jewish falafel shop in Pennsylvania, the latest target of pro-Palestine protesters. The crowd gathered outside of the Goldie falafel shop in Center City Sunday night. Scores of demonstrators shouted, "Goldie, Goldie, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide," an apparent reference to Palestinian casualties in Gaza. Goldie is part of the Cook and Solo restaurants. The co-owner of the hospitality group was born in Israel. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro condemned the demonstration on X. He called the gathering a blatant act of anti-Semitism, not a peaceful protest. The governor wrote, quote, "A restaurant was targeted and mobbed because its owner is Jewish and Israeli. This hate and bigotry is reminiscent of a dark time in history." Over in Miami, a former U.S. diplomat is charged with spying for Cuba, according to court records and the State Department. He is 73-year-old Manuel Rocha. He joined the Foreign Service in 1981 and served as the top U.S. diplomat in Argentina between 1997 and 2000. Rocha was arrested Friday in Miami and arraigned in federal court today. His diplomatic career spanned 25 years under both Democratic and Republican administrations, much of it in Latin America during the Cold War. He once held a diplomatic post in Cuba and also served as the top U.S. diplomat in Argentina. Rocha is a naturalized U.S. citizen originally from Colombia. He was raised in New York City. He will remain in custody until at least his pretrial detention hearing, which is set for Wednesday afternoon. Shifting gear to the travel industry, Alaska Air announced on Monday that it has entered an agreement to acquire Hawaiian Airlines for $1.9 billion, which includes $0.9 billion of Hawaiian Airlines' net debt. Alaska Airlines will acquire Hawaiian Airlines for $18 per share in cash. The two companies said that the transaction will unlock more destinations and expand access throughout the Pacific region, continental United States, and globally. The deal is expected to generate a high single-digit earnings accretion for Alaska Airlines within the next 2 years. The combined organization will be based in Seattle under the leadership of Alaska Airlines CEO Ben Minikuchi. A Palestine teach-in session planned this week by a group of teachers in Oakland, California. Students will learn about the Palestinian struggle amid the Israel and Hamas war. But the school district appears to push back. NTD's David Lam reports.
A group of Oakland, California teachers are encouraging teachers to join a teach-in session on Wednesday. A man by the name of Jacob explained the strategy in a YouTube video. He said the teaching is about education, labor power, solidarity, and resistance meshed into one action. A Google document with the curriculum was distributed as well. SF Chronicle reports that the lesson plans include a Palestinian-themed alphabet book with the letter I representing Intifada, referring to uprising and rebellion. Another lesson for elementary students encouraged them to identify what they, quote, will chant at a Palestine protest. However, local media reports that Oakland Unified is warning teachers to follow policy, stating some educators want to teach students about the Israel and Gaza situation with a very specific view of who is at fault and why. This is not what teachers should be teaching, and the district made this clear to all principals and teachers. It is the job of educators to teach students how to think critically, not to teach them what to think. It's unclear how many teachers will participate, but the district has over 34,000 students and 2,000 teachers across approximately 80 schools. David Lam, NTD News, California.
A Los Angeles man believed to be involved in 4 homicides across LA County is scheduled to attend his initial court hearing. NTD's Christina Corona has more on the update.
A convicted felon was taken into custody last week in connection with the shooting deaths of 3 homeless victims and the follow-home killing of a man in San Dimas.
The murder suspect of these 3 homicides is in the custody of the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department and has been identified as Gerald Joseph Powell, a male black, 33 years of age, and a resident of the city of Los Angeles.
Authorities said the common thread in the homeless homicides is that the victims were alone in open areas like sidewalks or alleys when Powell approached and fatally shot them while they slept.
Tragically, that same individual is also believed responsible for the murder that occurred during a follow-home robbery in San Dimas, making this suspect responsible, we believe, based on our investigation, for the murder of 4 individuals over the course of 4 days.
Powell allegedly followed 42-year-old Nicholas Sembolin to his home in San Dimas, took some items from his garage, and then fatally shot him. Surveillance footage captured the license plate of a 2024 BMW, which was then recorded by an automatic license plate reader in Beverly Hills last Wednesday.
The extraordinary work of the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department resulted in the quick identification of the vehicle that was used in that follow-home robbery and killing. An alert to law enforcement of the vehicle resulted in its discovery by the Beverly Hills Police Department, where a vehicle stop resulted in the arrest of Mr. Powell and the recovery of the firearm on Wednesday evening. Over the course of our investigation of our murders, we were able to identify the vehicle we believe connected to our 3 homicides as being the same vehicle Mr. Powell used in the murder of Mr. Sembolin.
The investigators' efforts have successfully confirmed that the handgun found in Mr. Powell's car is the weapon used in all 3 homeless homicides. However, there has been some controversy about the use of automatic license plate readers.
If we did not enter that plate into the system, this individual that we believe is responsible for at least 4 murders may have been out there and reoffended.
There has been no apparent motive for the killings. Powell faces murder and robbery charges with bail set at $2 million. His court appearance is scheduled for Monday morning. Christina Corona, NTD News.
And where did he exist?
We'll take a short break now, everybody, but here's a look at what we have for you when we come back. Increase the solar activity, the northern lights reach further south, and possible minor tech disruptions on the horizon. Holiday shopping is in full swing. The nation's largest, the U.S. Postal Service, is gearing up for a boom in packages with some new staff and tech. We're familiar with the New York Neapolitan and Chicago-style pizza, but what about Sicilian style? We'll serve you more on this square-shaped pie. Those stories and more coming up on NTD Tonight. Welcome back to NTD Tonight. I'm your host, David Zhang. Earth braces for increased sun activity and possible northern lights show. Some minor tech disruptions are also on the horizon. NTD's Stephanie Sikal reports.
The Space Weather Prediction Center issued a warning about magnetic storms for Monday and Tuesday. These are caused by a fast stream from a hole in the sun's outer layer, creating what we see as northern lights. Auroras appeared in southern Nevada, Minnesota, and Wisconsin on December 1st and 2nd, and even in some regions that have never witnessed auroras before. However, just as excitement grew, the Meteorological Bureau issued a geomagnetic storm warning that seemed like there might be potential risks behind this beautiful spectacle. According to the National Weather Service, geomagnetic storms are caused by solar activity. When the sun erupts, coronal mass ejections occur. This can hurl hundreds of millions of tons of solar material rapidly towards Earth. The storm could affect things like GPS, radio, and communication signals, but it's not likely to cause any major problems. Stephanie Sikal, NTD News.
The holiday season is the busiest time of the year, not only for shoppers and retailers, but also for the Postal Service. The largest postal facility in the U.S. is in Los Angeles, where they process upwards of 1 million packages a day. NTD's Eileen Ann has more on the Postal Service Super Bowl.
It's the busiest shopping time of the year, and the nation's largest United States Postal Service processing and distribution facility is ready to kick off the holiday season. The distribution site has added 100 employees to its workforce and has received new technology that will aid the speed and accuracy of around 1 million parcels that are expected to pass through the center each day.
And this is what we gear up for all year round, right? I mean, this is our Super Bowl. You know, this is what we work. That's why we got this job.
Banks said he expects an increase in package processing compared to last year's peak season because online shopping has remained at the same level since the pandemic, while recent in-store shopping has also picked up.
Well, we expect to process upwards of 1 million packages a day. All right, so to put that into perspective, last year we did about 25 million during our peak season. This year we think we're going to hit about 30 million. We're really excited about it.
Crews on the ground have already seen an increase in the volume of packages coming in.
Busy. Busy sums it up. We get a lot of mail every day. Every time we come in here, it's mail everywhere. So that's mail we have to process on a day-to-day basis. So we're here 9, 10, 11 hours, maybe 12 or something.
Banks said new machines like the high output package sorter and the flexible rover sorter can process 2,000 packages an hour.
We usually see about a 25 to 30% increase in what we do every single day. So we've geared up for that 20 to 25%, 30% increase in volume by bringing on the extra help, by adding the extra machines to make sure that we have the capacity that when those packages start to come in, we're able to process them and get them distributed.
He recommends that customers ship their packages early. The last date for USPS delivery is December 23rd before they close for Christmas break.
Now shifting gears to the fast-paced world of Formula One. Carlos Reyes is here to break down the recent developments on the starting grid for the 2024 season, with Logan Sargent securing his place for the British Williams racing team, which exists purely to compete in the top echelon of motor racing.
Logan Sargent completed the 2024 Formula One starting grid on Friday. The 22-year-old U.S. driver secures a second season along Alex Albon in an unchanged lineup at Williams Racing. The American, who scored 1 point in his rookie season this year, had been the only remaining uncertainty while all other drivers confirmed. The decision to retain the youngster also meant there will be no driver change on the grid from the end of one season to the start of the next, a rarity in the history of Grand Prix racing. Former champions Williams finished the season 7th overall this year, moving up from 10th and last in the previous campaign. Sargent, despite being outqualified 22-0 by an experienced Thai Albon, achieved several milestones, including being the first U.S. driver in 30 years to score a point and first since 1987 to start a home Grand Prix in the top 10. Carlos Reyes, NTD News.
You might be familiar with the New York Neapolitan, Detroit, and Chicago-style pizza. But what about another style pizza gaining popularity in the West Coast? And that is the Sicilian-style pizza. NTD's Helen Billings has more on this tasty story.
Sicilian pizza. It's a square-style pan pizza with a thick focaccia-like crust. It's crunchy on the bottom and soft and pillowy in the middle. We talked with JP Piccolo from Walnut Creek, California, who has been making pizza at his family restaurant Mello's since he was 16 years old. At 19, he went to cooking school in Italy, and about 5 years ago, he noticed Sicilian pizza gaining in popularity.
I'm like a major pizza nerd, and I follow hundreds of different restaurants, and especially pizzerias. And so I've been noticing more and more and more, seeing these kind of square Sicilian pan pizzas popping up all over the place.
Then when COVID hit, while at home, he crafted his own Sicilian pizza recipe, and it starts with the dough.
12 hours for the pre-ferment, and then 24 hours in bulk, and another 24 hours in ball form. So we're at 60 plus hours of fermentation time. So it's like a nice, flavorful, well-fermented dough.
His most popular pizza is called the Luca, named after his son, which is topped with pepperoni, mozzarella, burrata cheese, and hot honey.
And they're just beautiful and delicious. And so, yeah, I saw him first, again, seeing him in the East Coast. And then all of a sudden you started seeing more of these kind of pizzerias in the Bay Area.
We also talked to Vinny Sabaro, the owner of Vinny's Pizzeria in Martinez, California. His mom is from Sicily, and his grandfather started the chain Sabaro in the malls across America. He started making pizza when he was just a little boy in Brooklyn.
In pizza industry in New York, it goes back many years. But I would like to say that my family was one of the ones that kind of came up with pizza by the slice in the malls. That was the model.
Vinny, who's already been making Sicilian pizza for 20 years, also noticed a gain in popularity. He told NTD News why he likes to offer Sicilian square pizza.
It's a different style, but yet you could still use a lot of the same type of dough that you use for regular New York style. It's just prepared a different way as far as the way you proof the dough and how you cook it in the oven.
Vinny said one of the most important ingredients is the cheese, and California tomatoes make the best sauce. Now I'm hungry. NTD News, Helen Billings, California.
That's all we've got for you tonight. We would like you to join us again on NTD Tonight every weekday at 9 p.m. I'm David Zhang. Have a wonderful evening.